Hey everybody, Mountain Grandma here, sitting out here in the garden with my garlic. And I'm thinking about preparing this bed for the new plants that I'm going to put in it this year. And been hearing a whole lot about using manure as fertilizer because fertilizer prices have gotten ridiculous. So I've been doing some research and I'm going to share that with you all today. And I hope that you find that information valuable. I will be including a little discussion on NPK and some other secondary constituents to soil that are important, and specifically talking about manure and the different NPK values for all the different kinds of manure that we can use. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. And if you are not a subscriber to my channel, I hope you will consider doing that, and please hit the thumbs up and ring that notification bell and leave me a comment on what I share here. I'd love to hear from you. So when we talk about NPK, those three letters stand for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Potassium also is sometimes called potash. So when we talk about nitrogen in particular, that one is super important. It's what makes our vegetables have all the leafy greens that they have and really spurs the growth of that foliage. I'm going to share a picture of my tomatoes from last year, and I'll kind of move to the right to allow a space. Maybe right up here I'll put that. And you can see that they were super full of greens, not as many tomatoes in the beginning, and I really think that's because of the nitrogen that we used. The soil we used was Miracle Grow, and it's high in nitrogen. So that's what caused that. Another thing I want to mention about nitrogen is that it's really great for those onion starts. John over at Will It Grow mentioned this on one of his videos, and it was one of the things that got me really curious about NPK and just the different manures. And if we don't have fertilizer because it's so dang expensive, how else can we get that? Chicken manure is known to be very high in nitrogen, as is goat manure, and I'll be sharing a table with you about all of this here shortly. But from what I read, the reason that they're high in nitrogen is because, well, chickens don't pee, they only poop, so some of the urine isn't mixed in with their poop, and for goats they tend to pee where they're also pooping, and that's what causes that increase in nitrogen to be there. But it's also one of the things that's most depleted in the soil because the plants soak it all up pretty fast, and through just the natural processes of rain and the weather and heat and cold and things like that, the nitrogen gets depleted in our soil. So good to know that that is commonly something that we might run short on. But be careful, because too much nitrogen in your soil when you're planting vegetables and things could cause burning to your plants. So beware of that. Now I want to talk about phosphorus. Not a whole lot to say about phosphorus, but your plants, for root development, for fruit and flower production, you're really going to want to have phosphorus in your soil. That's what's going to spur the growth of those things. And so for that reason, tomatoes and all your root vegetables really want that phosphorus in the soil. On potassium, it's good to note that potassium in your soil helps with the overall vigor and health of the plant. It helps it fight diseases. And for anybody who lives in an area that I do that tends to be very dry, it will also help provide the plant with additional drought protection. If the potassium in your soil is low, those plants are going to be more sensitive to dry conditions. So definitely something that we want in our soil here in northern Arizona. As you'll notice from this table, we've got horse manure and cow manure, chicken, sheep, rabbit, goat. And for cow and sheep, I was able to find data on both fresh and dried. Otherwise, everything you see here is fresh manure. And you'll notice that the dried actually had more nitrogen than the fresh. I'm going to be growing potatoes and have a video coming out on that in a few days. But when I was looking at some manure to use, I was looking at steer manure because it has a little bit less nitrogen in it than other kinds of manure, and it's supposed to be great for those potatoes. Remember what you guys, when you're using the manures in your soil, Usually from what I saw, everything tends to be like 1 to 10, like 1 part of the manure to 10 parts of the soil. Based on what I saw, I'm sure that, you know, there might be differences out there in how y'all use that, but that's kind of what I'm rolling with my potatoes to start. I'm going with that steer manure for that. And if backing up with the chicken manure, I even saw that people were putting like a small amount of chicken manure, like 1 part chicken manure to like 10 parts or more of water, and making like a liquid fertilizer with that. And I thought that was pretty
Just
cool.
a little more
about some of the other tools that we have out there as gardeners in the world of organic type fertilizers. There are a couple that deserve worthy mention, and that is compost and worm castings. They seem to be pretty equaled out between the NPK values, and there's even been some research done. I was able to find a couple of journal articles that spoke to some experiments in using compost versus other sorts of growing mediums, and the compost really rocked it, guys. So just good to know. Good to know we can all add worm castings to our soil, knowing that we're keeping that equilibrium of those NPK values straight. And just a reminder, for bone meal, I don't know if you all are aware of this, but that's really adding a lot of phosphorus and potassium to your soil. So bone meal is great. It's not adding in nitrogen, because again, we want nitrogen, but we don't want too much because we don't want to burn our plants. And also we want to keep in mind those secondary constituents, calcium, magnesium, sulfur, that really work to help spur that root growth and make our green leaves even greener. So all of these are important, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this. And if you could, share with me in the comments below what kind of manure you all are using as your fertilizer and what kind of benefits you see from it. I'd love to hear from you. And remember, guys, with things going on these days, keep your joy, folks.